What we have is an exceptionally high-grade heavy rare earth resource with total rare earth grades in excess of 2%, whereas in other similar deposits they tend to be at 1% or less in terms of that total rare earth enrichment. That's taken a lot of exploration at our resource at Nechalaco in the Northwest Territories to define the internal geometry. But last year we had the pleasant surprise of discovering a high-grade subzone within the total deposit that has a much higher grade than the rest of the deposit does on average. So we've been drilling that off in more detail now so we can define it better and initiate the early mining there, because it's always important in developing any new mining operation to mine the highest grade material in the early years to accelerate the revenues to reduce the payback on your capital expenditures. And the rare earth elements are kind of a complex group of elements. There's 15 of them in the group altogether, and they have to be separated after extraction. And really the challenge with bringing new rare earth element deposits into production is not so much in finding the resource and defining the resource, it's figuring out how you're going to recover the rare earths and extract them into a form that's then usable in all these new clean technologies. It's a very expensive process. It requires capital investments of in excess of $1 billion to build the full infrastructure needed to mine it, mill it, and extract the rare earths into a refined form. The extraction process is where a lot of the research and development work is required to design the plant. For our pre-feasibility study that we did last year, we designed a process flow sheet at the laboratory or bench scale. So now what we're doing for our feasibility study is we're taking that process that we defined in the laboratory and scaling it up to run at the pilot plant scale to prove it up, fine-tune it to get the best recoveries that we can so that we can then finalize the plant design for the feasibility study before we initiate construction. So there's quite a bit of work involved in that. That's going to take at least the next 12 months to get all the way through that process before we've got it sufficiently well defined for feasibility study standards. We have a lot to do between now and 2016 before we can begin to have our first sales of rare earth products, but right now we see ourselves as on track to being able to achieve that goal. Our next big milestone is the completion of our bankable feasibility study, which we anticipate finishing in mid to late 2012, at which point we'll be looking at accessing the capital to begin construction in 2013. We see that as about a 2.5 year build to get our infrastructure built and operating. So we'd be in a position to start production sometime in 2015 and start feeding that plant so we would have product for sale sometime in 2016. I'm a geologist. I've been in the business in Canada and mineral exploration and development for about 35 years now, and been running Avalon for 16 years, and most of those years have been devoted to exploring for rare metals and minerals. So by being a relatively early player in this space, we've been able to attract some of the few people in North America that have experience